The rain is already coming down hard on Boylston Street by the time Mila Donovan walks out of her own anniversary gala, and she does not look back. She cannot. Not after what just happened in that ballroom. Not after the words that are still ringing in her ears like something shattered. She had spent 3 months planning this event, 10 years of marriage to Philip Hargrove, and she had wanted it to mean something. Crystal centerpieces, white roses flown in from Ecuador, a string quartet playing Debussy in the corner. All of it arranged by her own hands. None of it credited to her name. The champagne flute is still cold in her palm when she realizes she has carried it all the way through the lobby. She sets it on the edge of a stone planter and keeps walking. Inside the Whitmore Hotel's grand ballroom, 150 of Philip's investors, colleagues, and carefully curated social connections are still laughing, still drinking, still orbiting him like planets around a sun that does not know they exist. It started, as these things always do, with a small thing. Philip had been holding court near the bar, broad shoulders back, voice carrying the way it always does when he wants to be heard. One of his investors, a man named Gerald with red cheeks and a loosened bow tie, had gestured toward Mila and said something about how lucky Philip was, how devoted she seemed, how clearly she had put herself into every detail of the evening. And Philip had laughed. That specific laugh she had learned to dread over the years, warm on the surface, hollow underneath. Mila's good at appearances, he'd said, just loud enough. It's basically the one thing I still trust her to manage. The table went quiet. Someone coughed. Gerald's smile faltered and did not recover. Mila had stood perfectly still, the way she'd taught herself to stand when Philip said things like this in public. Spine straight, expression composed, the smile already forming before her brain could catch up to the pain. She had excused herself to find the ladies' room. And then she had walked straight through the lobby and out the front door without stopping for her coat. Now she is 3 blocks away, soaked through, her heels against the wet pavement, and she has no idea where she is going. Back is not an option. Home is a penthouse on Beacon Hill with Philip's name on the deed, Philip's rules on the walls, Philip's silence waiting like a trap. She has no friends in this city who are actually hers. Philip had managed that quietly over years, the way you manage anything you want to control. Patiently, invisibly, until one day the cage is already built and you are already inside. Her sister Joanna moved to Portland 2 years ago after Philip told her that Mila needed space. That was a lie, but Mila only understood it later after she had already stopped calling. She walks until the rain softens and the street empties out, and then she turns a corner and finds herself standing in front of a diner she has never noticed before. The sign says Atlas in red neon letters, the A flickering slightly at its base. Through the fogged window she can see a counter, a few booths, the yellow warmth of Edison bulbs. A handwritten paper sign taped to the door, open 24 Hearse. She goes inside. The diner smells like coffee and something buttered on a hot griddle. A woman at the counter, 50s, silver-streaked braid, name tag that says Dot. Looks up and takes in Mila's soaked dress, her running mascara, the absence of a coat in November. "Honey," Dot says, with the particular gentleness of someone who has seen this before and knows better than to ask, "Sit wherever you want." Mila takes a booth in the back. She stares out the window at the rain and tries to remember what her life looked like before it became this. She is 31 years old. She used to be a pediatric physical therapist. She had worked with kids recovering from spinal injuries, from strokes, from the kinds of accidents that rearranged everything. She was good at it. She had loved it. Philip suggested she quit after their 2nd year of marriage, said it was stressful for her, said he made enough for both of them. She had believed him, which still embarrasses her now. She has $4,000 in a credit union account that Philip does not know about, opened with a birthday check from her grandmother 3 years ago. She has been adding to it in small amounts ever since. A 20 here, a 40 there, the way you save for something you cannot name yet. It is not enough, but she has it. Dot appears with a mug of coffee and a small plate of warm cornbread, unrequest. "You didn't ask," Dot says, "but you look like you need it." Mila almost laughs. "Thank you." She is halfway through the coffee when she notices the man. He is sitting at the far end of the counter, alone, nursing something dark in a short glass. He was there when she walked in. She registered him then the way you register a background detail. But she notices him properly now because he is watching her, not the way men sometimes watch women in late-night diners, with something quieter than that. Concern, maybe, or recognition. He is somewhere in his late 30s, dark-haired, dressed in a charcoal jacket over a black shirt with no tie. There are faint shadows under his eyes, the kind that suggest he does not sleep as much as he should. He looks like a man carrying a great deal of weight with a great deal of practice. When her eyes meet his, he does not look away. He holds her gaze for a moment, then gives a small acknowledging nod, the kind that says, "I see you, that is all." Myla looks back out the window. 5 minutes later, she hears the stool scrape back from the counter, and then he is standing at the edge of her booth. "I don't mean to intrude," he says. His voice is calm and even, with a slight roughness to it. "I just wanted to make sure you were all right." "I'm fine," the automatic answer. She has given it 10,000 times. He does not argue with it, but he does not leave either. "You came in alone," he says, "in this weather, without a coat. It's almost midnight." "I appreciate the concern," Mila says, and she means it to land politely and dismissively at once. He accepts the dismissal with a nod but stays a beat longer. "If you need anything, if there's someone I can call or a cab or just, if you need something, my name is Roman. I'll be at the counter." He leaves before she can answer. She watches him settle back onto the stool and pick up his glass and not look at her again, which is somehow exactly the right thing to do. 20 minutes later, she says, "Roman." He turns. "You can sit down if you want." He carries his glass to the booth and sits across from her, and for a long moment neither of them says anything, and Myla finds that the silence does not make her anxious the way silence usually does. Philip's silence was always loaded. This is just quiet. "I walked out of a party," she says eventually. "My own party, 10-year anniversary." Roman does not wince or exclaim. He just says, "What happened?" And she tells him. Not everything, not the years of it, not the slow erosion, but the moment at the bar. Gerald's, Philip's laugh, the one thing I still trust her to manage. Roman listens without interrupting. He does not offer solutions or silver linings. He listens the way very few people do, with his whole attention. The worst part isn't what he said, Milo admits. The worst part is that no one said anything. 150 people and not one of them said a word. "They never do," Roman says quietly. "Not with men who have built their image carefully enough that everyone around them has more to lose by speaking up than by staying quiet." Mila stares at him. "You sound like you know the type." "I know a lot of types." She wants to ask what that means. She does not ask, not yet. Instead, she asks about him, and he answers in the partial, careful way of someone who is deciding in real time how much to reveal. He grew up in South Boston, second generation, the kind of neighborhood that teaches you early that the world does not owe you anything. He has a business. He is vague about the specifics. He has a daughter, 8 years old. He lost his wife 4 years ago to a quick and merciless illness that gave them almost no warning. "I'm sorry," Mila says. "So am I," he says, "every day." They sit in the Atlas diner until the windows begin to lighten at the edges, and Dot refills their coffee 3 times without comment, and by the time Mila finally looks at her phone, she has 19 missed calls from Philip and a text that begins, "You have no idea what you've started." She puts the phone face down on the table. Roman reaches into his jacket and slides a card across the formica toward her, just a name and a number, no title, no company logo. Roman Varro. "Call that number," he says, "if you need anything. I mean that." Why would you do that for someone you don't know? He considers the question with more seriousness than she expected. "Because you came in here alone in the rain," he says, "and someone should have noticed you a long time before tonight." She picks up the card. If you've ever felt that, felt seen for the first time in years, leave a comment below with the words "I believe in second chances." Let me know you're here with this story. Mila does not sleep that night. She checks into a hotel off Commonwealth Avenue and sits on the edge of the bed watching her phone ring until she finally turns it off. She buys a prepaid phone the next morning at a CVS 2 blocks away. She eats a granola bar from the vending machine and thinks about $4,000 and whether that number has any real edges to it. She calls the number on the card on the second day. "Mr. Varro's office, how can I direct your call?" She gives her name and waits, already half convinced this was a mistake, that Roman Varro was just a kind stranger who offered a polite card and never expected her to use it. Then his voice comes through. "Low, steady Mila, I was hoping you'd call." "You were? Are you somewhere safe?" She tells him where she is. She tells him about the hotel and the prepaid phone and the 19 missed calls that have since become 43. There is a brief silence. "You checked in with your real name?" "Yes." "Philip Hargrove has people," Roman says. "That's the first place they'll look." He says it without drama, the way he might read a fact from a page. "I'm sending a car. Get in it. I'll explain everything when you arrive." The car is black, tinted, driven by a composed man named Anton, who opens her door without a word. They drive northwest out of the city for nearly 40 minutes, through neighborhoods that grow quieter and more private with each mile, until the car turns onto a wooded road and through an iron gate set between stone pillars. The house beyond is long and low and modern, all pale stone and glass built into the hillside with the kind of quiet confidence that does not need to announce itself. It overlooks a private pond. The November trees are stripped bare, their reflections lying perfectly flat on the still water. Roman meets her on the front steps. In the days that follow, Mila learns the shape of his world in pieces. The estate is staffed and orderly. Mrs. Cho runs the household with quiet precision. A cook named Bernard insists she eat 3 meals a day whether she is hungry or not. Anton is always nearby, watching everything. Roman himself is gone most mornings, returning in the early evenings, carrying the particular stillness of a man who has handled difficult things and does not discuss them. He tells her enough. He is powerful. His business touches areas that the law does not always reach, and there are people who fear him for reasons she should not inquire into directly. He tells her this plainly, without apology, which Mila finds she respects far more than she expected. Philip has filed a missing person report. He is telling their social circle that Mila suffered a breakdown. His lawyers have frozen their joint accounts. Roman's legal team, a firm that apparently never sleeps, is already building a countercase, documenting years of financial control, isolation, the slow and deliberate architecture of abuse. He'll try to discredit you, Roman says one evening, folders open between them on the dining room table. He'll say you were unstable, erratic. He's been laying that groundwork for years, Mila says. Every time I disagreed with him at a dinner party. Every time I seemed upset, he had an explanation ready. She straightens a page. He's very good at explaining. So are my lawyers, Roman says, better. It is on the 4th day that she finds the room. She has been moving through the east wing, following curiosity down a corridor lined with framed photographs, when she notices a door cracked open at the end of the hall. Warm lamplight spills through the gap. She pushes it open. The room is small and thoughtfully decorated. Mint green walls, a bookshelf built low to the ground, a bed with a quilt printed in stars. Drawings are pinned to a corkboard in a careful grid. Horses, maps, a series of portraits labeled in neat block letters. In the center of the floor, cross-legged, with a library book open on her knees, is a little girl. She looks up without fear. Dark eyes, curly hair pulled into 2 puffs, her father's same quality of stillness. "You're the lady who's staying here," she says. It is not a question. I'm Mila kneels, so they are at eye level. "My name's Mila, what's yours?" "Daisy." She considers this satisfactory and looks back at her book. "Dad said you were going through something hard." That's accurate. "I go through hard things too," Daisy says, still reading. "Dad says the trick is to just keep doing the next thing, even if it's something small." Mila looks at this child, 8 years old, reading a book about migratory shorebirds with the quiet self-possession of someone twice her age, and something in her chest simply opens. Not slowly, all at once. "That sounds like good advice," she says. Daisy looks up again. "Do you want to hear about bar-tailed godwits? They fly 9,000 miles without stopping. I think that's the bravest thing there is." I think so too. Roman finds them there 20 minutes later, side by side on the star quilt, while Daisy explains migration patterns with the focused intensity of a scientist presenting findings. He stands in the doorway for a long moment before he speaks. His expression is something Mila cannot fully name. It is part relief, part something older and quieter. He puts Daisy to bed with practiced ease, tucking the star quilt, listening to one more godwit fact with genuine patience. When he steps into the hallway and pulls the door almost closed, he and Mila stand together in the quiet corridor, and he says simply, "She lost her mother when she was 4. She handles it better than I do. She's remarkable." She is, pause. She doesn't open up like that with most people. "I didn't do anything," Mila says. "You sat with her," Roman says. "That was enough." The weeks pass. Mila and Daisy fall into something that looks like routine. Mornings drawing at the kitchen table, afternoons walking the frozen perimeter of the property, evenings reading in the library. Daisy teaches Mila the names of every bird that visits the pond. Mila tells her about the children she worked with as a therapist, the ones who relearned how to walk, who relearned how to trust their bodies after the bodies had failed them. "Did they always get better?" Daisy asks. "Not always the same as before," Mila says carefully, "but most of them found a new way to be okay, which sometimes ends up being better than the first way." Daisy thinks about this for a long time. "I think that's what happened to Dad," she says, "after Mom. He just kept doing the next thing, for a really long time, and now she searches for the word, not sad in the same way." That evening, Roman finds Mila on the back terrace in her coat, watching ice form at the edges of the pond. He stands beside her without being asked, hands in his pockets, and they are quiet together for a while before he speaks. She told me what you two talked about. I hope that was okay. He watches the water. She told me she thinks you're brave. Mila laughs, a real one. I stayed in a bad marriage for 10 years. That's not brave. Leaving is the brave part, Roman says. Staying is just fear with a longer shelf life. She looks at him then, really looks at him, the way she has been carefully not doing. His profile is clean against the dark sky, and she thinks about all the things she now knows, the dangerous edges of his world, the way he reads to his daughter every single night, the way he listened to her at midnight in a diner and did not once try to fix a thing. Roman, she says. I know, he says, quietly. You don't know what I was going to say. I know what you're feeling. I'm feeling it too. He turns to face her, and his dark eyes are steady. And I know that your divorce isn't final, and that Philip's lawyers would love anything they could find to use against you. So we wait until you're free. And when you are, and when I am, I'm going to tell you properly everything I should have said in that diner. The threat comes on a Thursday. Roman is in his office when Anton appears at the door, and after a few murmured words, Roman's expression shifts. Not panic, which she understands he does not do, but a sharpening into something colder and more precise. He finds Mila in the kitchen and takes both her hands in his, the first time he has ever simply done that, and tells her straight. Philip has hired private contractors, former military. They have been watching the property for 4 days. The plan is Roman's design. For 2 days, Mila continues her normal pattern, while Roman's people watch the watchers, mapping their positions and their rhythms. On the third night, she is in the study at 9 o'clock, visible from the east window, when she hears the glass break in the sunroom. She stays where she is. Her heart hammers, but she stays. 2 men come through the door, masks, dark clothes, professional. Mrs. Hargrove, the first one says, your husband wants you home. My name is Donovan, Mila says, and her voice surprises her with its steadiness, and I'm not going anywhere with you. What happens next is very fast. Anton comes through a wall panel she did not know existed, and 2 more of Roman's men come through the window with a speed and precision that leaves no doubt about who Roman Varro is when he needs to be. The intruders are on the floor in under 30 seconds. Roman appears in the door first. Are you hurt? No. He nods once. Then to Anton, take them to the warehouse. I want everything. Who hired them? Exact terms. Payment records. Later, when it is just the 2 of them, he sits across from her and puts his hands flat on the table. This is almost over, he says. The men who came tonight are going to provide testimony. Philip authorized a kidnapping. My contact at the federal level has been looking for cause to open an investigation on him for 2 years. This hands them everything they need. You're certain? Certain, he says. By next week, Philip Hargrove will be explaining himself to a federal prosecutor instead of planning his next move against you. He is right. On a cold morning in early February, Philip is arrested outside his office on Federal Street, in full view of cameras that Roman's people had quietly tipped off. Mila watches the footage on her phone, sitting in the kitchen at the estate with a cup of coffee going warm in her hands, and she feels something she thought might be permanently beyond her. Relief, clean and total and quiet, the kind that does not ask for anything else. The divorce is finalized on a Thursday in March, the same month the last ice breaks up on the pond, and the first geese arrive on the water. Mila walks out of the family court building into thin, pale sunlight, the settlement papers in her bag. Her name returned to her like something she had lent out a long time ago and had finally stopped pretending she did not want back. Roman is waiting at the bottom of the steps. How do you feel, he asks. She thinks about it honestly, like I can breathe in my own lungs again. He smiles, the real one, the one that changes his whole face. There's something I've been waiting to say, he says. I know. Let me say it anyway. He takes her hand and does not let go. I've loved you since the night you walked into that diner and told the waitress you were fine when you obviously weren't. I loved that you didn't want anyone to make a fuss. I loved that you sat on a star quilt at 9 o'clock at night and listened to my daughter talk about shorebirds like it was the most important thing in the world. He does not rush any of it. I want you to stay, not as mine, as the person I come home to if you want that. Mila looks at this man, complicated, careful, dark-edged and steadier than anyone she has ever known. And she thinks about the woman she was standing in that ballroom, perfectly still, the smile already forming before the pain could catch up. And she thinks about who she is now, standing in March sunlight with her name back and her future unoccupied and the whole rest of her life beginning right here on a courthouse sidewalk. "Yes," she says, "I want that." He kisses her there on the steps, and it feels nothing like she expected love to feel. Quieter, more solid, more like coming inside out of weather than like weather itself. 6 months later, in September, they are married in the garden beside the pond. The trees are heavy with green. Daisy stands between them at the ceremony in a white dress she picked herself, holding both their hands. The vows are ones they wrote. Mila promises to see him clearly, the hard parts alongside the good ones, without pretending. Roman promises to stand beside her rather than in front of her, to protect without controlling, to love her in the daylight and in the dark and all the long ordinary hours between. When the officiant asks Daisy if she understands that Mila is going to be part of their family, Daisy says simply, "I already know that. She's been my family since the Godwits." The officiant does not ask for clarification. That evening, after the guests have gone and Daisy is asleep upstairs with the window crack to hear the pond, Mila and Roman stand at the water's edge in the dark. The September stars are sharp, and the air is carrying the first cool warning of fall. "I keep thinking about that night," Mila says. "The diner. What if I'd turned left instead of right?" "You would have found something else," Roman says. "You had already done the hardest thing. You walked out the door. Everything after that was just the rest of your life beginning." She thinks about that, about Daisy at 9 o'clock on a star quilt with no fear in her voice at all. About the $4,000 in the credit union which she has kept, because she has decided that a woman should always have something that belongs only to her. She thinks about the bar-tailed Godwit, 9,000 miles without stopping. Brave is not the absence of fear. Brave is walking through the lobby in a champagne-damp dress with nowhere to go and just enough to get started. Brave is the next thing, and the next, and the next. Roman says her name, low and quiet, and she turns to look at him, and the pond catches the stars in a long silver smear, and somewhere above them, heading south for the winter, the first geese of September call out across the dark. She is home. She is finally exactly where she is supposed to be.